Hello boys and girls, I am teacher Melinda Hughes, and today for social studies we will do questions and answers. These questions that we will do today are all based on social studies. In this segment we will look at essay type questions. So boys and girls, I encourage you to get your book and your pencil because you will have to write answers for these questions. Essay type questions simply mean that the question will be asked or a statement will be given and you have to provide the answer. So, I guess by now you have that book that you would have already papered and labeled Social Studies Quiz. Just in case, if you haven't done so, I encourage you, get you a book, label it quite nicely, Social Studies Quiz for grade 5, write your name of course, and afterward you can paper it and keep it in a safe place so that whenever it is quiz time, that is question and answers, you will use that book and that book will help you to trace your progress. So let's get going. Let me remind you that honesty is the best policy. And so I will encourage you to pretend as if you are doing a test all by yourself there with just somebody supervising, but no one to prompt. So let's get going. Question 1. Study the diagram below, then answer question 1. The diagram provides information that you can use from that diagram to answer the questions. So question 1A. What type of pollution is shown above? What type of pollution is shown above? B. Which of Guyana's administrative regions would most likely be affected by this type of pollution? The C part. Give a reason for your answer at B. Give a reason for your answer at B. And the D part says, identify 2 effects of this type of pollution. Identify 2 effects of this type of pollution. Next, we look at question 2. Question 2. Examine the diagram below, then answer question 2. So, there is a diagram there that shows a picture of a scene that I am sure, boys and girls, you are familiar with because this is one of the situations that Guyana usually experiences. So, question A. What type of natural disaster is shown above? What type of natural disaster is shown above? B. Give one cause of the natural disaster. Give one cause of the natural disaster. C. Which natural region would be most likely affected by such a disaster? Which natural region would be most likely affected by such a disaster? And the second part for C says, give a reason for your answer. Give a reason for your answer. The D part for question 2. Suggest one way how the government of the country can assist the affected residents. Suggest one way how the government of the country can assist affected residents. Study the images below, then answer question 3. So there are 3 images with names under those images. 1, we have Indira, 2, Nigel, and 3, Luang. A. Arrange the names of the children according to the order in which their ancestors came to Guyana. Arrange the names of the children according to the order in which their ancestors came to Guyana. B. Name the child whose ancestor came from the continent of Africa. Name the child whose ancestors came from the continent of Africa. The C part. On what date did Indira's ancestors first arrived in Guyana? On what date did Indira's ancestors first arrived in Guyana? And the D part, give one similarity between Indira's and Luang's ancestors. Give one similarity between Indira and Luang's ancestors. So boys and girls, I am sure you have written your answers. Question 4. This is the final question for this segment. Question 4. Study the image below, then answer question 4. Question 4A. Identify the type of family in the image above. Identify the type of family in the image above. The B part. List one advantage of this type of family. List one advantage of this type of family. The C part. Suggest one other way how this family can spend leisure time. Suggest one other way how this family can spend leisure time. And the D part. Give one importance of leisure activities to families. Give one importance of leisure activities to families. So boys and girls, I am sure you have written answers for each part of the questions or statements that were given where you had to provide an answer. Now let us examine those answers as we mark together. So for question 1. Question 1, you had to study the diagram below and then answer the questions. Of course, boys and girls, the image or the diagram shows a particular type of pollution. And if you have looked at it very carefully, then you would have written the correct answer for this. So let us go. What type of pollution is shown above? Answer. The type of pollution shown above is air pollution. The B part. Which of Guyana's administrative region would most likely be affected by this type of pollution? The answer. The administrative region in Guyana that would most likely be affected by this type of pollution is Region 4, Demerara Mahaica. The C part for question 1 says, give a reason for your answer at B. The answer. The reason for my answer at B is most factories and industries are located in Region 4. Or another answer could be, the reason for my answer at B is due to the economic activities that are conducted or carried on in Region 4, Demerara Mahaica. This type of pollution will very much be prevalent or will be experienced. The D part. Identify two effects of this type of pollution. The answer. Two effects of this type of pollution are: 1. Increase of respiratory illness and poor visibility. Poor visibility will result for pilots and drivers. Those are two effects. Or two effects of this type of pollution are increase in global warming because the air in the atmosphere will be contaminated, or increase of respiratory illness. Any of these two in combination will be correct. So let's have the answers for question 2. Examine the diagram below, then answer question 2. What type of natural disaster is shown above? And so the answer is flooding is the natural disaster shown above. There's no other answer. B. Give one cause of the natural disaster. The answer. One cause of flooding is heavy rain. Or one cause of flooding is rise in sea levels. Or another answer can be one cause of flooding is damage to sea defense structure. Or another answer can be one cause of flooding is change in weather pattern due to climate change. So any of those answers can be the cause of the natural disaster flooding that is shown in the picture. The C part. Which natural region would be most likely affected by such a disaster? And then you have to give one reason for your answer. The natural region that will most likely be affected by flooding is the low coastal plain. The reason for my answer, or as you would have written in a complete sentence, the reason for my answer is because of the build of the land and its location. But of course, boys and girls, you are familiar with other natural regions in Guyana where this type of natural disaster has occurred. However, the natural region that most likely will be affected by this disaster is the low coastal plain. However, the hilly sand and clay region or the interior savanna would also have experienced this type of natural disaster, and that is because there is an increase in the change in weather patterns due to climate change. And so, boys and girls, if you had written interior savannas or hilly sand and clay region, then because this type of disaster is prevalent or it is now occurring frequently in these other regions, then that answer too is correct. D. Suggest one way how the government of the country can assist affected residents. One way how the government of the country can assist the affected residents is to provide flood relief. And flood relief, boys and girls, come in different forms. It can be in the form of food supplies. It can be in the form of cash grants. It can be in the form of providing farmers with assistance so that they can still benefit even though they may have lost or will lose from their crops or even if their animals die. Flood relief includes food items, finances, or items that are related to agricultural produce. Another way how the government can assist affected residents is by moving citizens to refuge sites. Or another way how government can assist those who are affected by the flood is to install additional pumps to drain the land of the excess water. So that's how the government can assist residents. Answers to question 3. For question 3, you had to study the images below and then answer. So A, arrange the names of the children according to the order in which their ancestors came to Guyana. If you look carefully, you would notice that Indira is representing East Indians, Nigel is representing Africans, and Luang is representing the Chinese. So let us see how these names would have been arranged based in the order in which their ancestors came. The names of the children according to the order in which their ancestors came to Guyana is Nigel, Indira, and Luang. Next, name the child whose ancestor came from the continent of Africa. The child whose ancestors came from the continent of Africa is Nigel. The C part. On what date did Indira's ancestors first arrived in Guyana? The date that Indira's ancestors first arrived in Guyana was May 5, 1838. And the D part. Give one similarity between Indira and Luang's ancestors. So we're looking at the East Indians and the Chinese. One similarity between Indira and Luang's ancestors is they came from the same continent, and that continent is Asia. Another similarity is they came under the system of indentureship. Yes, the East Indians and the Chinese came to Guyana, or they were brought to Guyana by the Europeans to work as indentured servants. And another reason or another similarity between Indira and Luang's ancestors is they were not slaves. So those are answers that you could have written which either of, one of is correct. And our last question. Study the image below, then answer question 4. The image represents a family. And in that family type, or in that family, we see members. We see there is a father, a mother, and a child. So the question at A. Identify the type of family in the image. The type of family in the image above is nuclear. B. List one advantage of this type of family. One advantage of this type of family is more privacy for family members. Another advantage is less conflicts. Another advantage, one advantage of this type of family is bonding with parents, and yet another advantage, more finances available. So any of those 4 advantages, if you have written, is correct. The C part. Suggest one other way how this family can spend leisure time. Of course, they are looking at the television. They are sharing some time together, which is referred to as leisure activity or leisure time. So one other way how this family can spend leisure time is they can spend time playing games or reading books, or they can go for walks, or yet another activity, ride together. Another way how the family can spend leisure time is go on picnics and other outdoor activities. These are different ways how families or this particular family can spend leisure time. So any one of those is correct. And the last question for this question 4 is give one importance of leisure activities to families. One importance of leisure activities to families is family members are able to bond. Bond means that they get to share ideas and relationship together so that they are able to be closer drawn to each other. Another way how leisure activity is important is to help each other to develop morals. And by morals, this means good, desirable behavior. So when families spend leisure time together, they are able to help one another. especially children, to develop good moral habits. That is, to say please and thank you. They will see a demonstration of how to behave if someone is disappointed. Instead of fighting, the matter can be resolved in a better way. Another importance of families spending leisure time together or leisure activities is it lowers stress levels. Yes, adults and even children are stressed. So leisure time or leisure activities contribute to lowering stress levels. And one final thing that leisure activities do, or one importance, is it maintains healthy bodies. For leisure activities also involve exercising or riding or going for walks, and definitely those are some activities that maintain healthy bodies. So boys and girls, I trust that you have answered your questions excellently, and just in case you were unable to answer, I know you have gotten the answer and you are feeling a little better because you now know how to answer questions like these. I want to encourage you to continue reading so that next time around, for those of you who did not perform excellently, you will get a chance to, because reading leads to success. Until next time, goodbye boys and girls.